What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez.
And Matthew Messick.
And this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Profits Over Wages podcast, where we do weekly interviews with highly successful business owners and entrepreneurs. We discuss life, business, and entrepreneurship to bring forward the lessons learned from success and failure, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. On episode 57 of the podcast was done with Andrew Wynn. He is the co-founder and CEO of Sheltr, a company that makes home maintenance effortless and gives property insurers tools to mitigate risk, generate new revenue, and deepen customer engagement. On this episode, we'll talk about how Sheltr helps homeowners take care of their home by being proactive and avoiding costly repairs. We also talk about how Andrew was able to take Sheltr to market from just an idea in a very short amount of time, as well as some of the challenges he has encountered so far and the lessons he's learned along the way. Without further ado, Andrew Wynn. Hey, Andrew, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for giving us your time and, wanting to be a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
We actually got referred to you by Yakin, who was actually just on the podcast in the last episode that we did. But for those who are not familiar with who you are and what you do, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. My name is Andrew Wynn, and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of a company called Sheltr. We are a home maintenance service, and our goal is to make home maintenance effortless. So we do that by coming to your house every 6 months and doing what we call a comprehensive home checkup. We, do a bunch of stuff like change HVAC filters and replace light bulbs and change smoke detector batteries, but also check for potential issues in your home. We look at things like caulk and your gutters and the age of your appliances, just to help you proactively and preventatively manage your home and avoid costly expenses and potential repairs down the road.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
How'd you get the idea for that?
Yeah. Thanks. Well, the genesis of the idea sort of came from our homes are one of the most important things in our life, right? Certainly financially, for most people, it's the most expensive thing they'll ever own. But also emotionally, a home is a really important and meaningful part of your life. It's where you spend a ton of time. And they're the only real thing of major importance that we don't have, that we don't care for proactively, right? Or we don't have a trusted partner for necessarily. So like the other examples we look at are for our health, obviously, right? Like we go to the doctor once a year. Our cars go and we take them to be serviced and they tell us when they need to be serviced. If you have a pet, they go to the vet, right? And these are all to help you sort of mitigate and manage issues with those things and help keep those important things, healthy and performing well. And our homes didn't have any of that. So I live here in San Francisco and, homes are really expensive. And I was like, whoa, this is so crazy that this super important and expensive and emotional asset isn't cared for in the same way that I care for my $10,000 Honda, right? And so we looked at what a service might be to help people get some of that expertise and care for their homes.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things that people don't really think about. Like, I don't know how much you know about us, but we're realtors.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're showing properties, a lot of the time it's like people, like the sellers, haven't taken care of the gutters. So now because there's water dripping from the gutters, now some of the cement is, it's cracked, and now there's like water in the basement. And then there's just like something as small as just like literally cleaning the gutters can be like maybe a $10,000 issue later on down the road.
Totally. Right. And so a lot of people, we found it's not even that they are, maliciously neglectful, right? They're not trying to neglect their houses because they don't care. It's because they don't necessarily know, right? So we act as that trusted partner. We're not like the shady mechanic who's trying to sell you a bunch of stuff and you don't actually know what's going on. We're actually trying to help you save money managing your home, right? Like it's way better to clean your gutters for a couple $100 than have, cracks in the cement or water into your foundation because your gutters are overflowing, right? Most people just think, oh, I should clean my gutters because they don't really know why that is. So we help people understand the importance of that. Similar with, a lot of first-time home buyers don't even know why they should replace their HVAC filter, and or even if they have an HVAC filter to replace, right? So those are the kinds of things that we help educate people on. And a huge amount of what we do is actually helping people understand their homes. Education is a major component of our service, as well as actually delivering the service and connecting people with trusted vendors.
Okay. I want to get into a little bit more into Sheltr, but before we get into it, I would like to kind of go back, kind of like to talk about how you got to where you're at now. Because I noticed that you worked at Instacart for a bit. I think you said you were the 30th employee. Yeah, I personally use Instacart myself. I started using maybe about a year and a half ago, and I'm like, because grocery shopping, sucks. First of all,
especially in the winter in Chicago.
Yeah, try to bring a bunch of bags from your car through the snow and all that stuff. It sucks. So I started using Instacart, and it's freaking awesome. I mean, I mainly go to the grocery store for like produce and stuff, but all the other stuff, I just get it through Instacart because it's just so much easier.
Yeah, totally.
So I wanted to talk, a little bit about your background and like what you've done in the tech industry to like where did you get your start?
Sure. Yeah, happy to talk about that. So I'm actually, as we were just talking about, I'm from not far from you guys in Chicago. I'm from actually a small town in Indiana called Bristol, which is just east of Elkhart, which is just east of South Bend. So from northern Indiana, so not some big city boy that knows all about tech from day one. And I went to college at Purdue, which is obviously an engineering and a pretty technical school, and really started getting exposure. And this is I remember my freshman year of college was the first time the iPhone came out, and was really fascinated with what technology could enable, and really wanted to learn about and understand technology and how we could apply it to our lives, right? And it was sort of being applied to our lives inadvertently all around us, and it still is, right? But I being in college, I was able to really think about what are some deliberate ways to do that. So spent some of my time in college understanding and thinking about implications of technology, which after school, I actually took not necessarily a break from that, but I wanted to, before jumping into a career, I joined the Peace Corps, and I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years, and I worked and lived in a remote village in West Africa in Senegal, doing agribusiness. So nothing to do with technology, and sort of off the grid for a couple of years, which was a really incredible experience. And then I came back to the US in 2013, and sort of was able to look around and see where all the exciting stuff was happening, and decided, well, I just have to move to San Francisco because, all these changes are happening. There's so much cool technology and businesses and new ways of doing things being created in San Francisco. I have to just sort of go and be a part of that. So I moved here. Worked at actually in a technology rotational leadership program at Levi Strauss, the headquarters down here, for about 9 months, which was interesting, but it wasn't it was like IT, right? So it wasn't like the super fun, exciting stuff that was happening all around me, but I got to meet tons of people and see different people doing various interesting companies. And that's how I was first introduced to the team at Instacart. I knew some people who worked there, and they were like, come work here and join us. The team was probably about 25 or so people. Our office was in a house in South Park, the Soma neighborhood of San Francisco, literally someone's house. It was a big house, but a house nonetheless. Worked there doing a whole bunch of different things at the beginning. At that stage of a company, you do whatever needs to be done.
Right.
The company continued to grow to the point where actually someone's desk was in the shower of that house, right? We got pretty crowded in there. And everyone started to specialize a little bit. And I started to work really closely with the retailers who Instacart partners with to actually onboard all of their products digitally. So most of these things had never been sold before online, right? Like, sure, you could buy Oreos on Amazon before, or Oreos, had been sold online, but like specialty local produce or, Whole Foods chicken salad had never been sold online. So we actually needed to create digital representations of all of these products. And that's what I spent a few years at Instacart doing. So getting photos and metadata and nutrition facts and figuring out what's in stock and how much it costs and all that
Shit, this
kind of
sounds like a
stuff.
lot of work, man. I
It was a
mean,
lot. Yeah.
just thinking of like all the stuff that they have at a grocery store, like Aldi or like Jewel or, Whole
Exactly.
Foods. And it's just like
Yeah. So like
thousands.
an average Mariano's or Jewel has probably, if it's a smaller store, probably about 30,000 items. And if it's one of the big ones, probably like 50,000 different products at any, throughout the year. So, and then there's obviously some of the assortment is not the same at every single store. And obviously the
Right.
stock is not the same at every store. So it ends up getting pretty complicated, and you have sort of hundreds of millions of instances of items of knowing what's in stock and all this kind of stuff and how to tax it. And, Cook County's different tax from, other counties, right? They have all their crazy
Right.
bottle deposits and stuff like that. Right. So figuring out all that kind of stuff was a real challenge, but it was a real, in summary, it was like a real, how do you bring this very traditionally offline thing into the digital world, right? So no one had created a grocery catalog this big, and we got to do it from the beginning, which was really fun and cool and helped us think about, it allowed us to do new things in new ways. So then and there's obviously a huge amount of data unlocked by that. And then after Instacart, I went to a data science and analytics company called Looker Data Sciences. They make essentially business intelligence software that allows people to really understand their data and take advantage of it. So I worked on the product team there for a little over a year. And at that point, that's when I knew that I had to start Sheltr, mostly because, we own our house here or our condo here in San Francisco. It was a ton of work. I had reconnected with Praveen Chakuri, who's my co-founder here at Sheltr. We previously worked together at Instacart and started talking through the problem and knew we had to do it. And it was something that we felt really passionately about. So that's sort of what led us that was sort of my journey to Sheltr.
How long did it take you guys to from when you thought of the idea to develop your concept to actually take it on to market?
Yeah. I mean, we had the problem for a long time, right? Like the problem is the part where you spend a lot of time before you come up with a solution, I think. And so, I've owned my condo for 4 years, maybe my partner and I, first time we'd, been responsible for managing our home or anything like that. Before we'd had roommates or landlords or parents or whatever, right? And we were pretty overwhelmed by the amount of work and stuff that could go wrong. We didn't know what all those things were. We didn't really have people to help us. So we lived with the problem for a few years. And then Praveen is first generation. He moved here from India in high school. So his parents are first generation, they are English is a second language for them and Praveen. But they moved to New Jersey and they'd never had a sump pump before, right? They didn't know about freezing pipes, right? And
Right. Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So for them, there was a bunch of stuff that they just had to learn as well. And Praveen, by virtue of, being he was the eldest son and spoke the best English, had to deal with a lot of the service providers and manage the home a little bit. So he learned as well through his parents. And it was just, we came together and realized gosh, there's got to be a better way to manage our homes, right? So we lived with the problem for a while. We met up pretty regularly toward the end of, we started the company, in December of 2018. But we'd been meeting up for a few months, experimenting with stuff, testing stuff, researching before actually sort of diving in.
So you technically started about 6-7 months ago now.
That's right. Yeah. So we're a super young company. Yeah.
And then you said, how many employees do you guys have now? Or you said you just brought on someone?
Yeah, we have six full-time employees now, as well as contractors and people who are helping out in their flexible time.
Cool. So let's dive deep a little bit into like how Sheltr works. How does that process work? Whether it's on like the customer side or whether it's on you guys' side. Yeah. Are you guys making partnerships with contractors, or is it a contractor, or is it like somebody that works for you that goes and does like the home valuation or the maintenance valuation?
Home checkup. Yeah. So Sheltr is actually a 3-sided marketplace. We have, or I guess, sort of 4-sided. So the way the business works is we actually get a majority of our customers not direct to consumer. So we don't necessarily you won't see Sheltr ads out, for places. What you might see instead is we do a very similar thing to what Instacart does, where Instacart provides existing retailers with the ability to deliver groceries, right? Like Instacart is not a grocery company, right? They're not buying groceries and then delivering them. Similarly, we work with companies like insurance companies and brokerages and lenders so that they can offer home services by Nationwide, right? We're not a partner of Nationwide, but just as an example, or home services by Allstate. And so they actually white label our product and then offer it to their customers as a value add, very similar to if you have auto insurance, you might get roadside assistance included for free. So that's where a lot of our customers come from. That's sort of the first side. And then once they've, actually scheduled and joined Sheltr through their partner, we then send one of our contractors out. So these are people who typically have property management background, insurance, adjustment, or insurance inspection type backgrounds, people who are really familiar with the home and comfortable with the home, but aren't necessarily a tradesperson. They're not like a skilled laborer or anything like that. And we give them, we train them. They go through a pretty rigorous training process where they do some, video training. They do some actual sort of assessments, and then they do on-site shadowing before they actually go and do their own checkups. And these people are work very closely with us. They use our app to go through and complete these home checkups where they, can note the size of the HVAC filter so that we know what size HVAC filter you have, right? And next time we can make sure we always have that size with us. They document your appliances so we know your model and serial number. So if you're having an issue with your fridge, we can tell you if it's in warranty or not, or we can help you troubleshoot remotely. You might say hey, I'm getting this weird error code on my fridge. And we can say, oh, you have a, Samsung XYZ fridge. Have you tried resetting the ice maker or something, right? So we're able to help people remotely with something, we sort of call it telemaintenance. But anyway, so our contractors go in and complete this work. And then shortly, based on what they populate in the checkup app, we then provide the homeowner, right, the customer who, has signed up for Sheltr or Sheltr by Allstate, right, a report that says, hey, here's all the stuff we did. Here's why we did this, right? So like we talked about at the beginning, the educational component's really important. So why is it important to check the condition of your gutters? Why do we check GFCI outlets? Well, it's 13% of home fires are caused by faulty electrical systems. That's why, right? Like it might seem you've probably never plugged in a GFCI tester into your outlets, because why would you? But it's actually really important, right? Like if some of those things are wired incorrectly, you could have a really big issue down the road. And so on and so forth as to, why we're doing those things. And then we also recommend, potential things like, hey, we noticed your water heater's 20 years old and starting to corrode. Like you should probably replace it, right? Like it's you might have a bad time if you don't, right? And a lot of people, like, when was the last time they were in their basement looking at their water heater? They may never.
Or when was the last time they drained it?
Totally, right? Like if the water heater is 10 years old, we might say like, hey, it's probably time to drain it. And then what you can actually do based on those recommended actions are click, and actually arrange services with our network of trusted vendor partners. So this might be like plumbers who we've, validated and vetted and checked their insurance and, making sure that they're people we want to work with. And then once the customer requests that they don't have to actually go on Thumbtack or Yelp or Craigslist and call 20 people and 10 of them don't answer and 5 don't call back and the one guy they arranged doesn't actually show up, right? Like we handle all of that logistics for them so that they can make that whole process really easy. And that's how it works, right? So that's the full cycle. Obviously you're not limited to doing just the things that, if you want to install a Nest camera, right? We might not recommend that, but of course you can use our network for that too. We really think that, a lot of people have probably like 10 things that they know they need to do around their house, but there's such high friction to arranging those service providers that's why they're only doing the things once they become that sort of like oh crap, I have to do this now moment, right? So that's why we want to make that much easier so that people can actually take care of the things that they know they should well in advance.
Yeah, it's funny. I was laughing because, Matt and I started in real estate flipping houses. So every time we would get a house and try to get an estimate to do the repairs, we would call maybe 5, 6 contractors to come by, give us an estimate. 4 out of 5 wouldn't show up. And then the one guy that said yes, he'll be like 30 minutes late or like it show up, like barely show up at all. It's funny you say that because like we've had literally the same experience.
Yeah. And, that's a really important part of our business too, right? So like I said, we're a 3-sided marketplace where we have our partners on one side, right? Our customers on another side, and then our vendor partners, right? So our vendor partners, our electricians, our plumbers, the people we work with. It's really important to actually help these people solve their problems too, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just like there aren't millions of plumbers who are just sort of begging for work that you gotta, you can be really sort of demand focused. You really have to understand what issues they're facing and help them as well. So we focus a lot on our suppliers and what we can do to make a better experience for them. So a lot of these people, and just to talk about that a little bit, a lot of these tradespeople and vendors are finding their work on places like Thumbtack and Angie's List and Home Advisor, right? All the names that we've probably heard of, but it's actually not that good of an experience for them, right? So we started out learning this by just trying to like take these guys out for a cup of coffee or, buy them lunch at a diner or something just to learn from them, what's challenging in your business. And you sit there and like, just, they put their phones on the table like most people do now in 2019, and you just watch these phones blow up, all the time. And it's just people calling and texting. And it's from these places like Home Advisor and Thumbtack, and they're pretty inundated with leads, right? So they have lots and lots and lots of people reaching out to them, but the quality of those leads is really bad, right? So
they're just asking for an estimate.
They're kicking the tires, right? Like you don't know if they want to do it. The homeowner or whoever's requesting it, like might not have it scoped well. So like, let's say you say my dishwasher's broken. What kind of dishwasher do you have? I don't know. What's wrong with it? It's not working, right? Like when we work with our vendor partners, we can say like, hey, we've helped the homeowner troubleshoot. It looks like it's the pump drain. They have a KitchenAid, DF 1234. Bring the pump, right? And then when they do that, they're able to actually, save time. They don't have to show up and then drive back to the parts store and come back another time. They're able to actually complete that value generating work for them in a much more efficient manner, and then do more work, right? So do work that actually means a lot. Also, because of the nature of our customers, we have geographic density. So, we're not sending people from the north side of Chicago, and we're not in Chicago, right? But we're not sending people, driving an hour between jobs, because we know that that's just sort of lost time, right? And we don't want people to do that. And so we don't actually, when we're coordinating work with our service partners, we're not, we never offer the same lead to many people at the same time, like Home Advisor does. So let's say like, Andrew, I'm on Home Advisor. I say, I want my windows painted. It's going to go out to 20 painters, right? And then it's sort of a race to the bottom, first one to respond, and they're all going to pay for that lead, right? So like, inherently 19 people have paid for that lead that aren't getting work from it. So they're going to pay $5 or $10, right? To give a price and nothing's going to come from it. So we actually just give it we offer the job, to facilitate the job, to the best quality service provider in the area at the time, so that they're able to, they're not paying for a lead that they don't want or wouldn't convert.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it's really important that we focus on the service provider too. There's certainly, I think a lot of other platforms treat service providers as a necessary evil. And that's why you have those bad customer experiences. Like that's why 4 out of 5 people don't show up, because like they're already sort of disenchanted with the experience. So we try to make it a really good experience so that they want to keep working with us and they treat, our joint customer really well.
How does that work? Like does the plumber pay to be on you guys' platform, and like when they do the job, does the homeowner pay you and then you pay the contractor, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's obviously some complexity around that, right? Because of various regulation and general contracting law. So we're not a general contractor. We don't ever purport to be. What we do is we actually just connect the service provider and the customer within our platform. So if you pay, let's say using the window painting example, you pay Tom's window painting, $100. Like Tom is gonna confirm that quote with you, right? We can provide some like estimated pricing based on what we've seen, but it's not a quote, right? Like we think this will cost between $50 and $150, for example. And then we'll select the best supplier. If that supplier accepts the job, or that vendor partner selects the job, then they'll show up at your house. You guys will talk about it. They'll confirm the quote. Let's say it's $100, and then they complete the work. They pay the vendor partner directly through our platform. So that money goes directly, we facilitate it. That's another benefit that we offer to our vendor partners. Like some of these guys like don't accept credit cards, right? They don't know what to do or how to do that. Like I'm sure you guys flipping houses mailed tons of checks, right? Like homeowners today don't want to do that, right? Payments should be invisible, right? Like it's like Amazon. Like you're not like getting out your wallet every time you buy something on Amazon. It just like you click and it works, right? And so that's the same experience we allow our service providers to provide, where we process the payment within our platform for them. All the money then goes to that service provider, and then they pay us a fee depending on the size of the job after it's been completed. So again, that's also really compelling to them that they're not paying us fees or paying us leads if they don't actually make any money, right? They'll only pay if they make money. It's pretty similar to what Yakin is doing with Nest Egg.
Right. Huh.
That is pretty cool. I like that. What do the consumers pay for? You go out every 6 months, right? And then give them essentially like a report, about their house and what should be your suggestions for what needs to be fixed. What do they pay for that?
Yeah. So that every 6 months we definitely do the report, and we also, are also doing stuff, right? We're changing the filters and light bulbs and batteries and stuff. So we're not just showing up to sell them stuff, right? I guess is a different way, but in a lot of cases they pay nothing, right? Like that's the beauty of partnering with people. Your insurance company, for example, the last thing they want is for you to have a claim, right? So let's say, they're willing to pay for you to better manage your house a little bit. So the vast majority of our customers have actually never paid us a subscription fee. They only pay if they want to book a service. And then the subscription fee is paid for by our partners, whether that be an insurer, a lender, a broker, right? Whoever it may be who might have a vested interest in the home or just want to like keep that customer engaged, right? So, you guys are realtors, right? Like you always want your customers to be thinking of you, right? So that they refer people to your business. And a house is a transaction that you don't actually, you don't complete that transaction very often, right? Or as a homeowner. And so how do you as a broker keep top of mind to your, people you've sold houses to? Well, one way is to like show up every 6 months, right? And so in this case, you could pay us a fee, normally around $200 a year, right, to actually pay for those services, to offer preventative maintenance branded by Matt's Real Estate, for example. And then that homeowner, every 6 months you show up and, to them, for all intents and purposes, it's like, wow, Matt's Real Estate is so great. Like these guys come every 6 months and they help me, understand stuff in my house, and they changed my HVAC filter, and like that light bulb that was just a little out of reach, they took care of. Like, I'm definitely going to tell my friends about Matt, right? Whereas other people don't have that. Obviously that's even more valuable in cases of like insurance, where it's like, they want, typically their only interaction with you is sending a bill, right? The insurance company just sends you a bill. Now they're actually giving you something, right? Beyond just peace of mind. They're giving you this actual service. And at the same time, they're mitigating their own risk, right? They're saying like, hey, chances are that there's going to be fewer claims if people care for their homes better, right? And so that's part of the benefit. That said, to answer your original question, if someone wanted to buy just Sheltr membership as is and not get it through a partner, you can absolutely do that. And we charge $399 a year for our full service membership, which includes the 2 visits, access to our vendor partner network and booking, as well as unlimited telemaintenance and questions and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. But yeah, mainly how you're structured is that you're B2B where you find partners to essentially include your services with theirs, and
That's right. Yeah.
they pay you
So
directly.
as a realtor, you could probably offer maybe a year free worth of you guys' service as part of like a gift that you give to your client at, at closing.
Exactly. Right. And so, very similar to the $399 a year price is not it's not an accident that's pretty similar to what a home warranty costs, right? And obviously, if you're a realtor, a lot of realtors provide home warranty as a gift. Say what you want, right? Like sometimes those products work really well, sometimes they don't. But that said, like imagine if you sell a house, right, and you're a realtor, and someone you give a home warranty as a gift. One of two things typically happens. One, and remember, you're giving this gift so that people think about you, the realtor, and like have a positive experience with you and recommend you to friends, right? Like the purpose of it is to like thank the customer, but also help them to remind other people about you, right? And so one of two things is going to happen if you provide a home warranty. The first case, nothing, right? Like nothing breaks. They've never thought about you in that year, right? Like they have the peace of mind, but like it's like insurance, like it's better if you don't need it, right? Like that's sort of a bad gift to give. The second thing is something bad does happen, right? The fridge breaks and you need to have it repaired. Well, now you have another sort of fork of two options. One is they take care of it and it's great. And now you as the realtor have sort of turned this bad situation into like a good one, right? You saved the day a little bit. That said, that doesn't always happen with home warranties, right? We all know this, right? You just have to go and look at Better Business Bureau or other people's feedback on the existing home warranty companies. But like a lot of times, like, oh, sorry, the ice maker's not covered because it's a carve out of the policy. Sorry. And now all of a sudden this gift you gave like has turned a negative experience into an even more negative experience, right? Because they had their fridge break. Oh crap, that sucks. But don't worry, I've got it taken care of. Oh, just kidding. No, it's not. So that's not necessarily in either case, right? Like it's not necessarily something you as a realtor want to put your name on, right? Like it's not the experience you want to associate with the customer. Whereas Sheltr, like we're coming to your house every 6 months, right? And like we're there to help you with stuff. Chances are if you just bought a house, there's stuff you want to do, right? Like you might want to paint, you might find all this stuff. So like we can make that process really easy. And we're there to help with the educational component. So there's a lot of benefits to actually, and we show up twice a year, no matter what, right? Like you're going to have an experience with us. And our customer satisfaction scores are really high, right? Like in the last 30 days, our customer satisfaction score is 94 out of 100, right? So people really enjoy the experience. And so as the flip side, as a broker, it's a really good thing to put your name on as an agent of like, hey, this is like, Matt gave me this. And we can also, like I said, we're very partner focused. So we can brand the experience, right? Let's say you work with Compass, right? There can be like a Matt Compass landing page where you can sign up and it looks and feels like your brand.
So we could white label through our brokerage, for that.
Yep.
Okay.
Totally.
So I had another question now. What is included in the membership, and would a homeowner get maybe a discount on the services, like if they were to hire a contractor, or how have you guys structure that?
Yeah, certainly. So included in service is really three things. So there's these biannual home checkups, which include all the proactive maintenance that we've talked about. So HVAC filters, smoke detector batteries, dryer vents. We snake drains. We change light bulbs. We clean dishwasher disposals. We clean we clean garbage disposals and clean dishwasher filters.
Okay.
There's a bunch of stuff that accumulates on those, and that's what actually causes the pumps to burn out a lot. And then we also do the home assessment. So we document the appliances and systems. We check their condition. We look for stuff like dry rot and overhanging branches and the age of the roof and the gutters and, a whole host of other things. So that's the first thing that's included. The second is the ability to sort of easily schedule home services. So whether it's a recommended action item or any other home service that you want. And we work with our vendor partners to sort of pre-negotiate pricing, and we do fixed pricing where possible, right? So if you want a Nest device installed, we have as an example, right? Like we have fixed pricing on that. It's not going to be like an hourly rate and the person's going to show up and, take 4 hours to do something that should take 1 hour. We have a fixed price for that. And then other things are obviously, you guys know, a little bit more variable, right? So in those cases where you don't really necessarily know what you're getting yourself into, we do have our vendor partners offer pre-negotiated rates on the platform, which are typically lower than what you would find elsewhere, just because like we're able to give them that really high quality volume and geographic density. So they're actually still making a little bit more money than they would, but much more efficiently.
Right, because they're not going to charge retail.
No.
Be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, certainly not. Yeah, and like to them, we can give them lots of jobs, right? And so 80% of our work goes to the top 20% of our vendor partners. So, because of that, we get economies of scale, or rather like, our platform gets economies of scale with them, which allows them to really be able to provide better rates than they would if you were to just arrange it yourself. And also like, there's certainly the like labor cost that, we're able to reduce, but because you're able to, you simply like can click and schedule a service. The amount of time it saves you, right, is also really important and not worth brushing under the rug, because you can spend a lot of time trying to find a reliable service provider at the time you need. You can spend hours and hours, and like everyone's time is valuable, right? So that's not something to scoff at either. And then the last thing we provide is obviously a really home specific experience, right? So everything we're doing is based on what we know about your actual home. So if you're booking all your services through us, we have all your receipts in one place, right? Like there's no, at the end of the year, tax time, like, did I get an invoice from, Joey's Electric and all that kind of stuff? It's all there, right? The other stuff is like the action items are specific to your home. It's not like, you see maintenance checklists and stuff like, it's the fall, you should clean the gutters. Like in a lot of cases, yes, but like it's not necessarily specific. Like what if there's no trees around your house? Like maybe you shouldn't do that, right?
Right.
But maybe you need to do something else instead. And so we're actually able to give you these sort of personalized house specific recommendations. And also because we have that data, like I mentioned, we can do smart telemaintenance. So, hey, I'm having a problem with my fridge or my dishwasher or whatever. We know what those things are. And we can say like, okay, it's in warranty coverage. Like, let's find someone to help out with that. Or, hey, it's not in warranty, or the most common issue is this. And, we can help you with those types of things. So it's
people just call a number, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can text us. We have a text number. You can email, you can chat us. We have any way you want to contact us. We're available. So email, text, chat, and phone call.
Awesome. What are some of the most common issues that you guys see as far as like maintenance goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really varies, right? And it's pretty seasonal. So it was pretty hot here in the Bay Area recently, and people were flipping on their ACs for the first time. And we had obviously people who were like, hey, these aren't working as they should be. Those are some of the more ad hoc service requests that happens pretty, as you would imagine. In terms of proactive and preventative stuff, you would be shocked by the number of people who don't know to clean or don't even know that they have an HVAC filter, right? So you can really
or don't even know what it is,
or how to take it out,
right? And so we see plenty of pretty gnarly, dirty HVAC filters.
10-year-old filters.
Yeah, and like just even showing the homeowner, like in our report summaries, we show the before and after photos, and obviously we also do it in person, right? Of like, hey, this is why we're doing this thing. And people are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And, it really impacts your wellness, right? And like, that's what the air that you're breathing in your house is being circulated through. Like you want it to be pretty clean. And so, that's one pretty common thing. We see a lot of people in California, where we are mostly operating, who don't have emergency earthquake kits or fire extinguishers. Like we live in a place where there could be an earthquake any moment. And so part of our goal is to, help you care for your home and help you care for yourself. And it's like, hey, we didn't see this thing. Like you should probably purchase an earthquake kit. It sounds silly, but like, you never know. Right. And people are like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do that. And we give them a really easy mechanism to handle that.
Yeah. It's not like you can look up the weather and be like, oh, there's going to be an earthquake tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
I was just talking with I was just talking to somebody the other day, and she said when she first moved into her place, it was like a first floor, gardener unit, and she was planning on getting like a security system set up, and then she's been there for 20 years now and never did. And somebody didn't try to break in her house, but somebody did some damage like in the backyard. So now she got a security system after like 20 years. But yeah, everyone with home stuff, it's stuff that everyone wants to do, and like I'll get around to it, or they just don't know. But having it set up where everything's like notified to them, really sets them up.
Totally, yeah. And just giving them the easy way to handle those things, right? It's like really, I mean, just write out a list of the 10 things you want to do, and it's like there's a big wall between number 1 and 2, right? And number 1 is just like the most urgent stuff. We get rid of that wall so you can do all 10 things, right? Whether it's that security system or cleaning your gutters or all these things you should do and more.
Yeah. So we asked a series of questions just to generate a good conversation about the entrepreneurial journey.
Actually, hold on before we go into that. What markets are you? Are you just in California right now?
Yeah. So Sheltr is currently operating in the Bay Area. So we operate in the 5 counties around here, or 6 counties around here, and are expanding pretty rapidly here. We're also going to be expanding to both Dallas and Houston in the very near future, in the next month or two. So July and August for those markets. Our expansion is dictated by our partners, right? So if people need us in places, that's what determines our expansion. We're very, very B2B2C partner driven, really allowing those existing companies to enable this very valuable experience for their customers and do it on, having Sheltr power that for them. We're not interested in being like a big brand, right? Like we don't need that. We want to just help these existing companies reach their own customers better.
So yeah, what does the future of Sheltr look like, or how far are you looking to expand?
Yeah. What does the future look like? That's a great question. So we're 6 or 7 months old right now, so it's there's a long future ahead of us, I hope. But we're very early looking ahead. We want to continue to expand into new markets, right? We want to go where, like I said, our partners need us the most to help them improve their businesses and their customer experiences. I don't know necessarily what those markets look like, but we're very willing to partner with them in different places. I think we'll continue to grow. We'd like to just keep adding customers. I think we'll probably be working with, multiple dozens of partners probably in the next year or two, who are powering their home services offerings with Sheltr, rather than, and have some, probably 20% of our customers or so coming directly to us, but a majority of our customers coming through our partner channels.
I feel like anywhere where we have 4 seasons would be perfect for you guys, just because every few months is something different, whether it's leaves in the fall or snow or rain and, in the spring.
Totally. Yeah. There's a lot of problems. We got to definitely do a little internal training to really handle the weather, since we're pretty fair weather folks here in California.
All right, Matt, do you want to go into the questions? Do you have a money, or do you want?
Yeah. What, Andrew, what do you wish you knew before you got started?
Yeah. What do I wish I knew before I got started? People often talk about, and I think, we hear this a lot of, like, the emotional roller coaster. And this is something that I think I wish I knew, but it's probably impossible to know. So I'm going to say the same thing that people said to me, and it didn't land when I heard it, but whatever. Maybe it'll land with somebody else. It's really hard, right? And like emotionally very hard, because you're coddling this tiny organism of a company, and everything feels very existential. And as a founder, that responsibility falls to you, right? So the highs are very, very high. The first time we signed a partnership was an incredible feeling, and the lows are, it's like feeling like you're about to be fired, right? Like, because it's like, well, shoot, my company's not going to survive, so I won't have a job and I failed, right? Like, it is oscillating between those two highs and lows all the time. And I wish I knew that existed. I wish I had known how high the highs are and how lows the lows were.
They're pretty abysmal sometimes.
Yeah.
Very abysmal. Yeah.
It's and really they happen in the same day a lot of times too.
Yeah. It's crazy. And also I think like the person who really wishes they knew that better was my fiance, right? Like it's a very, starting a company, it really is not like it is an all the time pursuit, right? Like it embeds into 6 inches into your brain. And I think Yakin said that, right? And it doesn't go away. It is just there all the time. And that makes it really hard to like, be present in conversations with your friends and family. And like, that's something that people need to be really aware of and work on. Cause if not, like, you're not going to be a nice or fun person that people want to spend time with.
Yeah.
Have you ever turned down a client so far? And if so, why?
Turned down a client?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've turned down like some partners where we're not able to actually serve their markets yet. We haven't turned down any direct to consumer customers, and thankfully, none of them have turned us down either. So we've had no churn with our direct to consumer customers, which is really great. Yeah, we haven't had to turn anyone really down yet for any substantive reason.
What markets are you getting interest from?
Yeah, I mean, it's really high stakes markets, right? So especially on the insurance side, where there are markets that potentially have a lot of claims. So broad examples might be like, Florida, where home insurance is really expensive. Claims are pretty frequent. And there's stuff that you can do to actually, potentially mitigate some of these things. Florida, obviously hurricanes are a huge issue. We can check for roof straps, which are essentially straps that connect the roof to the joists, right? And make sure that people have those in order to help mitigate the risk of if a hurricane does hit their home.
Sinkholes are pretty common over there too,
sinkholes,
weird.
Right? Sump pumps, a bunch of other stuff they have. Yeah. And here in California, right? Like we also have, part of the reason Northern California has been a pretty good market, with our insurance partners is fires are a real risk here now, right? Like we've had these last few years, the climate around here has been changing and well, it's been changing everywhere, right? But like, it's really impacted our fire risk. And so trimming back trees is like not just a nice to have thing anymore, right? It's like actually really important. And like some people don't realize that, like that if you have a tree overhanging your house, like, or too close to your house, like it's not just like, oh, I'll get to it, or like, oh, what a pain because I have to clean up the leaves in the fall. It's like, no, man, like that could really be dangerous if there's a fire. So like, let's take care of it. And so we help with stuff like that.
Okay. What have been some of your biggest challenges, to get off the ground and during your growth phase?
Yeah, I think it's really because we are such a multi-sided marketplace. It's really understanding and prioritizing and making sure that all of the constituents are happy, right? Like it's easy to build a solution that's really good for service providers and bad for customers, or vice versa, right? And so we've been focused on keeping all of those benefits in check, right? So that there's good equilibrium in the marketplace and not necessarily optimizing for one too early, because we know that like if we build an incredible customer experience where like, customers can schedule it, we guarantee down to the minute arrival. And if the service provider shows up 1 second late, we fire them from the platform, right? Like those are things that aren't going to work, right? Even if the customers might like it more, we have to grow all those benefits in equilibrium. And so really understanding what's important to each group has been, it's just a lot of work, right? And it's a challenge. And it's not necessarily, like, I'm not a home insurance company. I am a customer. I'm not a service provider, right? So I have one piece of knowledge, but I don't have the entire picture. So it's been really important for us as a company to prioritize and learn those different perspectives.
What habits helped make you successful?
I think that's I don't know, cause versus, causation or just sort of what makes me neurotic. I think a few things. One, like it's really important to work when your brain is most effective. So like I'm a very early morning person. I wouldn't ever ask, my team to work at 5 a.m. when I do. I think, one thing is like, it's okay to like have flexibility in your schedule, right? And like, I'm really much better working from like 5 to whatever, in the afternoon. And like, you're not going to see me doing good work at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or even, 7 p.m. or whatever. So like, I don't really do it then. And just sort of understanding that and not just saying like, I'm here from 9 to 6 every day, because that's when I should be, has been one. Being really organized, I think is important. And actually investing in relationships with people. Like I think it is often in technology, we think we can sort of gloss over that and just build good engineering solutions and stuff. But like, it's really important to like, there's a human element to every business, especially this business. So like, actually, like I was just talking about, like caring about and understanding and hearing people, whether that's our insurance partners or our customers or our vendor partners, is really important.
That was actually my next question is, do you have a morning routine?
I do, yeah. So I wake up pretty early and I swim most mornings. So I swim both in the San Francisco Bay year round without a wetsuit. So most people think I'm a little crazy for that. I think there's something about the cold water that really wakes you up. And I swim there some mornings, and I swim in the pool some mornings, but it's really important for me I like swimming a lot because you don't have like a podcast or music to listen to, and you can really sort of focus your mind and think about what's important for the day and not be distracted by other things, or like a workout class, right? Like there's a lot going on and you can't actually think during that. So I use that as my sort of thinking and planning time.
How far do you swim out?
I swim normally 2 to 2.5 miles in the morning.
Damn.
Why do you do what you do? What gets you through the tough times?
I mean, there's something that's a really great question. There's a lot of reasons, right? There's probably reasons that drive it that I'm not necessarily aware of or in touch with, right? It might be like, I don't know all the reasons, but the ones that I think about often are, creating something is very rewarding and fun. That's part of it. It's also something that's like, I think in our society, like much easier to do if you have a lot of, privilege, frankly, right? Like I could go work at a bank and make whatever amount of money. And like, to me, that's not as interesting of like taking all the luck and privilege that I have and actually trying to like create something new with that. So that's a big reason. And also the reward, right? Like we talked about the not financial reward necessarily, right? Like there's obviously a potentially high payback, but a very, very low chance of that. So it's not about that. But the sort of emotional and personal reward of actually like the feeling I get every day walking into an office where there are 6 of us is pretty incredible, right? Like that's insane to me. And that feels really, really good. And so that's part of it too, like creating something new and building a place where you want to work.
Ricardo, did you have any other questions?
What living or dead person other than family members do you most admire?
I really like Oliver Sacks. I think he's very thoughtful and in touch, and it seemed like he got a lot of stuff done in his life and had many, many experiences and was able to, both go deep in certain topics, but also get a lot of exposure to different parts of life. And I think that's really important. He also liked to swim every morning, so maybe that's why I have the connection.
If you get the chance to start over, what would you do differently?
I think I'd probably, I think we felt a really big compulsion to rush to market a little bit, and we did, and that's fine, and it's worked out. I think it's actually been really helpful in learning quickly. I don't know if I would do that differently. I'd probably just be a little bit more calculated about how we went to market and some of our initial experiences with customers and, making sure we had actually thought through things end to end before taking the first step. I don't know if that's good advice. I think that's a little different, but maybe just talk to more people who had better experience, or had done something similar in the past, or not, because then maybe I wouldn't have done it. Who knows?
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
The best piece of advice that I've ever received is that the best way out is through, right? Like, if you're having a bad time, don't quit, or know when to quit, I guess maybe. But like, most of the time, the best way out of a problem is through it, right? And so really thinking about that and digging deep and knowing that like you're in the shit at this point, right? And it's going to be hard, and like you can quit, but it's that will be worse, or you can get through it and that'll be better. And just sort of keeping that in mind is really important to me.
What's that book? The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Is that's what it talks about pretty much, is like, the
really?
obstacle is the way. If something that, you have an obstacle, obviously the best way is to just head on, don't quit. Try to go through that.
I haven't read that book. I think it's,
it's pretty good.
Sage advice, right? I think the Winston Churchill quote that sums it up pretty well is, if you're going through hell, keep going, right? Like that sort of puts it in perspective. Like, why would you stop there? Right. So thinking about it that way.
If you had one piece of advice to somebody just starting out, what would it be?
Somebody just starting out, probably like, don't listen to me or other people, right? Like, if you have conviction, ideas are cheap, conviction is hard to come by, and opinions are like the expression, like assholes, everyone has one, right? So don't listen to people. Like, people will sort of inherently pick stuff apart, myself included. Like, I talk to people all the time and I'm like, oh yeah, like, you should really think about this in your business. I don't know. You've thought about it way more than I do. If like you have conviction about it, like, go and try it, right? There's very little risk. I think if you're the kind of person who wants to start a company, like, you're going to do it at some point, and there's very little risk to doing it relatively now versus later. So you should probably just do it and learn from it, right? And sort of try to put it in perspective of like, what's the worst that can happen, right? So for me, the example that I thought about a lot was like, company fails, of which there's a very real chance it might, right? Like, just looking objectively at the data, what is the worst that happens, right? And it's like, I try something for a couple of years and we work and we learn so much, make all these networks and connections, and we help some people along the way, but ultimately it doesn't work out. It's like, well, that sounds a little bit better than an MBA, and an MBA takes 2 years too. So like, you should probably just do this thing, right? So that like, try to find like what the perspective is for you, and benchmark against that, and then just go and do it. Okay.
Awesome, man. That was the last question. If people want to get a hold or find Sheltr, where could they go?
Yeah. Our site is Get Sheltr, GETSHELTR. We don't have the last E. Domains are very expensive. I would also advise people to buy a domain that they like, if they can buy it. Or they can just email me at andrew@getsheltr.com, or find me on LinkedIn. My name is Andrew Wynn, Wynn.
All right, man. Well, thank you. We really appreciate giving us your time. Best of luck to you and your company. Hope you guys do
my pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it was good chatting with you today.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
All right, take it easy, guys. Bye.
And that's it for another episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing before you head off, though. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us your thoughts on iTunes. It would really mean a lot and help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook at Profits Over Wages Podcast, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.